What do you say, everybody? Great to see you this morning. What do you know? It's Thursday, January 16. This is the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio right here on Capitol Hill, with lots to talk about this morning here on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, TawkrTV. Free Speech TV, of course, on your satellite, on DirecTV or the Dish Network. And TawkrTV, it's youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. Here are just some of the stories we're going to be following this morning. The Senate Intelligence Committee out with a report very critical of the State Department for the Benghazi attack, saying that attack on September 11, 2012, could have been prevented by better security at our consulate in Benghazi. And Marco Rubio has already demanded that Hillary Clinton be dragged back in front of Congress to testify. The presidential campaign of 2016 is already underway by a 2-to-1 margin. The residents of Washington, D.C. support the legalization of marijuana, so the nation's capital could soon become the pot capital of the country as well. Congress, believe it or not, packing their bags and getting ready to head out of town again today. They are going to celebrate next week not just Martin Luther King's birthday, but the Martin Luther King whole birthday week they're going to take off. And First Lady Michelle Obama, back from Hawaii, of course, she is getting ready for a big celebration tomorrow night at the White House for her 50th birthday. She is 50 and fabulous. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction,
America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
On the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Washington, D.C. looks like it may be the new pot capital of the country. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, January 16. Here we go. The Bill Press Show ready to launch into outer space here for the next 3 hours with all of you. Good to have you with us today. We've got a lot to talk about and a lot you are going to want to talk about. It's a big, busy Thursday here in our nation's capital. All the poor members of the House and the Senate, they've worked so hard the last 2 weeks since they came back from Christmas that they're going to take another week off next week to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. Maybe they ought to look about it's a birthday.
Not semantics.
It's not a birth week. You know, and to think about 5 years ago, half of these Republicans opposed celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday, right? But now that they got the birthday, these same Republicans don't hesitate to take the whole damn week off. I'm telling you, no wonder only 9% of Americans approve of the job Congress is doing. At any rate, wherever it's happening, we'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to comment on it by phone at 866-55-PRESS. Join the conversation anytime. That's what keeps us going here for 3 hours every morning. Send us your comments on Twitter. We love to hear from you at BP Show. That's our handle. It's very easy, at BP Show. And on Facebook, just as easy, facebook.com/Bill Press Show. I gotta tell you, my favorite little item of the morning. First of all, let me just say hello, of course, to all of you on our local progressive talk radio stations all around the country, to all of you watching on Free Speech, and to all of you following us on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Say good morning to the team, Peter Rockburn,
hey.
Lisa Murphy. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We've made it through 4 days. Oh, no, 3 days.
We haven't made it to the fourth day yet.
Into the fourth day.
Almost Friday.
I know. I'm feeling good about it. Alicia Cruz there, as always, standing by to take your calls. And Cyprian Balding on the video cam for those of you watching on Free Speech and the video stream at TawkrTV. My favorite item of the day, Cyprian, I hope we can get a picture of this, is this week's cover of the New Yorker magazine. The New Yorker, they have a knack for getting covers that really say it all, right?
They really do.
So even for people who have not heard of the Chris Christie scandal, don't know all about it, this week's cover just came out. I just got it yesterday at any rate. Shows the George Washington Bridge, for our radio listeners, the George Washington Bridge, traffic all backed up. And they're all sitting there because in the middle of the bridge is a little boy playing with his ball, bouncing his ball. And that little boy, of course, is in short pants. Yeah. Looks like a little kid. Yeah. But he's got a great big head.
There's no mistaking who it's supposed to be.
It is Chris Christie. Yeah. There he is. Yeah, what a great cover.
Phenomenal cover.
That's good enough to frame, I think.
Really it is. You know, the cover of Anthony Weiner on top of the Empire State Building, phallic Empire State Building. Michelle Obama and Barack Obama giving the fist bump.
The terrorist fist
jab. Yeah. During the campaign, every once in a while they really, really score. So there you go. I'm telling you. Yep. That original piece of art is going to sell for a lot of money. So that's just one of the things we'll be talking about this morning. It was David Letterman talking about Chris Christie also last night. Chris Christie's State of the State address, David Letterman said, yeah, of course he accomplished all that stuff for New Jersey, and we know why.
Chris Christie has stopped jobs from leaving New Jersey. Of course, he closed the bridge. He said crime in New Jersey is down. Of course, he closed the bridge. They can't get in. He said he created the single biggest turnaround in the history of the state. Hey, you can't turn around. He closed the bridge.
That's how he accomplished all of that. Yeah, very, very good. All right. Hey, we're very excited today that we have two outstanding members of Congress coming in to see us in studio. Mark Pocan from Madison, Wisconsin. All of our good friends out at 92.1 The Mic will be very excited. He's a great new liberal member of Congress. Joining the Progressive Caucus, whose co-chair, Keith Ellison from Minnesota, will also be in studio today. Keith Ellison has a new book out, My Country, 'Tis of Thee, which he'll tell us about, and also both of them will tell us what we can expect, if anything, out of this Congress this year. But a little bit, our first guest this morning, we're going to go out to West Virginia and find out the latest on that big chemical spill in the water and whether the water is indeed safe to drink now. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We talked last week about some of the lose weight quickly scams that are out there. Here's one.
Yes.
Here's one that I cannot.
Can you get a gym body without ever going to the gym?
That's the one. Well, here's a new one that I cannot recommend, and doctors aren't recommending either. It's called the corset diet. Women are putting on extremely tightened corsets. What are you doing? You making a little cocktail over there? I'm not on the radio or anything.
It's the Bill Press happy hour.
You want to shake it up there for us? There you go. There you go. It's called the corset diet, Bill. And what women are doing is they're putting on...
This is what women used to do.
Oh, it's everything that's old is new again. This extremely tightened corsets under their clothes, hoping to lose weight and slimming their waist. Doctors are actually saying, do not do this. There's a reason that this went out of style early on. Women are reporting that doctors are seeing women who have reports of bruised liver, spleen, and kidneys from all the constriction that they're putting on their bodies.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Don't do that.
No.
It's horrible.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I thought that they went away for like forever.
Yeah, no, it's back, and doctors are saying it's no good. Harvey Weinstein has acquired the rights to a story called A Speck is the name of the book. It's the story of John Aldrich, the lobsterman who fell into the Atlantic 40 miles off of Montauk and survived 12 hours at sea using his rubber fishing boots as flotation devices. Harvey Weinstein said he hopes to reunite Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in the movie, but they're going to make a movie on this guy.
No, but his name was what was his name? I read this story about this in the New York Magazine a couple of weeks ago. Incredible story. This guy had such presence of mind.
Yeah.
I mean, they say that the first thing, and the whole story about how the Coast Guard found him and everything, but it would not have happened if he were not so clear thinking in this. They say the first thing you're supposed to do, fishermen know this, right, is take your boots off because they drag you down.
Right.
He realized his boots could keep him afloat because there were these big green boots that everybody always made fun of. So he took them off and then kind of put them back in the water to get an air bubble in there. So they became like floater wings.
That's
and
so
he put
smart.
one under each arm. Then he also realized this story. I love this story. He also realized that if they were looking for him, he'd be hard to spot. But he's a lobster fisherman, and they have these buoys out there. A buoy at all the fishermen do. One at the beginning of their line, where their traps are, and the other at the other end. And so he figured, if I find a buoy and hold on to a buoy, they're more likely to spot me. And that's what he did.
Well, that's an amazing story.
Yeah. A Speck in the Sea is the name of the
Oh, I got
story.
it. Yeah.
By the way, it's about John Aldrich.
Aldrich, that's the guy's name. Yeah.
And Pope Francis is cleaning house. He fired 4 cardinals from the Vatican Bank Commission yesterday because he didn't like the way that things were being run. They had been appointed by his predecessor, Pope Benedict. They were given a 5-year term, and Pope Francis let them serve 11 months and said, "You're not doing a good enough job. You're out of here."
I love
Amen to that.
Yeah, tandem.
Yeah. This has never happened. Unprecedented.
Yeah.
The other thing is, he just appointed 15 new cardinals, and he appointed cardinals from Haiti, from Nicaragua, from some of the poorest countries to reinforce his message that the mission of the church is to serve the poor. He did not appoint one new cardinal from the United States, which was, I think, a real message to the United States bishops, Catholic bishops of the United States, that you guys are going in the wrong direction. Basically, he was saying to them, all you talk about is same-sex marriage and abortion, and contraception and masturbation. Get off of that kick. Get back to what you should be talking about. And then maybe we'll have some more American cardinals.
So many divisive issues really here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Pope Francis. He deserves to be Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Right?
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there's big news in the pot area today, right here from our nation's capital, with a stunning new poll in the Washington Post about the legalization of marijuana here. Now, remember, this comes on top of 2 states last year passing initiatives to legalize recreational use of marijuana. We've talked about a lot here on the show. Alan St. Pierre's been in several times from Normal to tell us what's going on. Washington State has yet to come online. They're still figuring out. But Colorado, on what day was it? When they
it began January 1st.
That's right.
It began January 1st.
It was January 1. It was a holiday, right? But that's when they started it. And so far, they've had incredible success. We brought you some of those stories, too, where some of these, there were 35 stores that opened on January 1. There are going to be eventually a couple of hundred of them statewide. And some of the stores even, people waiting in line for hours, some of the stores even ran out of product. They were selling so much. And, of course, out of all that revenue, I don't know, Peter, whether we know how much money that they've been able to, that they estimate, but like 25%, I think, of that revenue goes to the state.
So here are some of the numbers. So just the first week alone, right? So the first week of 2014 when they were doing it, they exceeded $5 million in sales. That's 1 week. 1 week, $5 million. There are also several stories about how they didn't anticipate that the edible marijuana, because you could buy the kind that you smoke, but then you can also go to these shops and buy brownies and cookies and lollipops and things like that are potent enough to get you high. They didn't anticipate that they were going to be selling as much of those as they are, and those sales are through the roof. They're projecting that in this year alone, there are going to be $2.3 billion worth of legal marijuana sales in the United States this year.
In the United States?
In the United States.
But in Colorado?
Oh, I don't know about Colorado, but like when you put it all together, this is what they're anticipating, $2.3 billion.
Wow.
It's a whole new idea of a bake sale.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's a whole new idea of an economy. I mean, this is the pot economy, and they're already talking about pot tourism. They're already seeing that. Those numbers don't reflect the people who come in, the hotel revenue and all that kind of stuff. So other states see this. As Alan St. Pierre told us the last time he was in, Maine is on track with an initiative which should come up soon. the Rhode Island legislature is looking at this. California, which has already had at least 2 initiatives to legalize pot, both of which barely failed, will soon have another initiative to do that. And so other states see what's going on. Yesterday, New Hampshire became the first state, the first state house, not initiative route, but actually state body, the state assembly, or the state house, I think it's called, New Hampshire, voted 170 to 62 to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. This is New Hampshire. Well, I love it. Live free or die. That's their slogan.
Live free and get high.
They were split. Here is one state representative who warns about the dangers of marijuana.
Marijuana seriously impairs judgment and motor coordination and more than doubles a driver's risk of being in an accident.
Obviously spoken by a person who has never tried marijuana. Representative Frank Saporetto takes the other side of the argument, but notice what his main argument is here.
This is, no matter how you look at it, is going to produce revenue.
Revenue.
Money.
Revenue. That's what they're looking at. And now we get to Washington, D.C. here. The latest poll from the Washington Post this morning shows in favor of legalizing the possession of small amounts of marijuana for personal use, 63% support, 34% oppose here in Washington, D.C. What's really stunning about this poll finding is that 4 years ago, January 2010, it was 46% for and 48% against.
That's funny.
So it's gone from barely losing, basically tied 4 years ago, to 2-1 in favor this year. Now, what about your state? Have you heard any talk about it? Anything going on? Do you think it's going to happen in your state? I think it's a race. Let's talk about it here at 866-55-PRESS. But I think it's a race between legalization of pot and legalization of same-sex marriage to see which one is going to hit 50 states first. Now, because there's no constitutional amendments against the legalization of pot may make it first because you got to undo some of those same-sex marriages. Same-sex marriage is ahead right now if it's 17, 18 states. And pot's just getting started in 2 states.
And it's moving fast.
But it's moving fast. And should it? Are you still afraid of it? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back and get high together.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now.
As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, headline in the Washington Post, front page, majority in D.C. favor legalizing pot. In fact, it has gone from 46% favoring 4 years ago to 63% today. Will Washington, D.C. be next? Peter, comments?
We're on Twitter at BP Show. On Twitter at BP Show. Karen says the government doesn't think twice of selling cigarettes that have been proven to kill you, but they're against pot that helps a lot of people.
There you go.
That sums it up for
Good
me.
point. Dave is in, believe it or not, Cleveland, North Carolina. Hey, Dave, good morning.
Morning.
What do you think?
I think, is the industry the growers doing anything to protect themselves from the weed just being grown in Mexico or anything, and then, being sold cheaper and taking the money out of the local economy?
No, yes, in fact, Dave, they are doing that in Colorado. If you go, I'm sure, to Normal's website, you can find out. But the pot in Colorado that's being sold legally is being grown in Colorado in greenhouses. It has to be grown indoors, which is a way of cutting off that Mexican supply, and that's part of the system they've come up with.
And that's also part of the problem, is that they're running out of the supply because
that is right.
It's illegal to grow it in so many other places, so they can only sell what they can grow there.
Yeah, and so in fact, this is a great opportunity for growers. I'm sure in some states they'll be able to grow it outdoors. In Colorado, have to be all indoors. But it's an opportunity for growers and suppliers and distributors and those in the retail stores, as well as an opportunity for those that want to smoke a joint. More calls coming up here at 866-55-PRESS. Pot
is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, on a Thursday morning, January 16, the Bill Press Show, 33 minutes after the hour now. Thank you for being with us this morning, coming to you live from our nation's capital. Brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, Leo Gerard. A good man, very outspoken, and a big fighter for working families in this country. Leading the Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. I'm sure Leo was happy to see President Obama yesterday talking about reviving manufacturing in this country. And you can find out more about the Steelworkers' good work at their website, usw.org. We've been talking about the a growing movement around the country for the legalization of marijuana, following the example of Colorado and Washington State. Colorado already in business. Washington State will soon be there. Public attitudes are changing fast, as evidence by, number one, up in New Hampshire yesterday, the first time a state legislative body has voted to do this, even though it was a close vote, by the way. 170 to 162. You know what that means? Do you realize how many members they have in the state house in New Hampshire? I mean, Jesus. They have over 300 members of the state house. It's like there's one representative for every 5 people in New Hampshire. At any rate, it passed in New Hampshire. It's a big deal. And now in Washington, D.C., according to this morning's Washington Post, 63% favor legalization as opposed to 34%, and that's up from 46% supporting it just 4 years ago. We go right back to the phones here. Out in Sacramento, California. Well, I smoked some pot in California, in Sacramento, California, but it wasn't illegal when I did it. Hello, Malcolm.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Love your show. Been watching you for a long time.
Oh, thank you, man.
I don't think anybody's addressed the question of everybody's talking about legalizing marijuana. We have a lot of unemployed people out there in our country. So what's going to happen when you go and apply for a job? You still don't have to take a drug test, and they're not going to hire you.
That's a good question.
It's a real question.
Well, first of all, there will be jobs created too by the legalization of marijuana, which is one side of that story. As I mentioned, in the distribution, in the marketing, in the sales of it, and just driving the trucks, all that kind of stuff, Malcolm. But I think the answer must lie in what Colorado did. They had to have addressed that in Colorado.
Well, there are still sort of like residual problems because, one of the issues that they're having now are these legal dispensaries, these places that are legally selling it. They have nowhere to put the money. Some of the banks are saying we're not going to take that money because it was made off of drugs. And so they're having to sort of rework the laws of
Colorado?
In Colorado. So like there are going to be some residual laws that come out of this to sort of make sure that everything's okay.
But you know what? All I got to say, it's sort of like, I hate to make this analogy, it's like the problem with the website with Obamacare. All right, so you got some glitches. They're going to fix them. Now, think about it. The first state to go from prohibition, and by the way, let's go back to prohibition. I'm sure there were lessons. We did it then. But Colorado is the first state to go from prohibition to legalization. That is not like turning a light switch on and off.
Right.
As I said, there was a long article in the New Yorker. One of the reasons Washington State still isn't out there yet is because they're going through, have to jump over all these hurdles, right? And Malcolm raised a very good one.
That's a very good question.
The drug test. So you're going to have to, if you test positive, then you're going to have to say, well, first of all, I think you're going to have to allow it if you test positive, because if it's legal, it's legal.
But if I go to, because like
how will they know where that pot in your system came from?
Right. So
whether legally or not.
First of all, I'd be curious to know what companies are still like actively testing for marijuana these days. But if I'm here and I work for you and I go to...
You can smoke all the pot you want, dude. All right?
Thanks, boss.
Let me just put that out there.
Leading by example.
Well, I mean, Cyprian already does.
That's why there's no camera in there.
No, that's why
it's just a foggy haze when I walk out there. But like if I work here in Washington, D.C., and part of the draw is the pot tourism in Colorado. If I go to Denver and I spend a week getting high and then I come back and oops, it's the big company drug test.
In another state. Right, okay. Let's find out. Hey, maybe Matthew knows. Matthew's in Denver listening on the 760 AM out there. Hey, Matthew, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Matthew.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
You're doing very well.
I bet it is.
There's a reference in the Bible regarding same-sex relationships and drug use. It's actually found. Well, yeah, it's found in Leviticus.
Yes. You want to?
It says, "Where men lie together, they must be stoned."
Okay. All right.
Well, God bless Colorado. See, there's a biblical foundation.
Yeah.
A biblical foundation.
Evangelicals can get behind this too.
Right. But we never found out the answer to the...
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Matthew would have had the answer.
I don't think Matthew would have known.
Well, maybe it's in Leviticus.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Robert is in Lawrence. Is that how you pronounce it? Come on, Peter, South Carolina.
Lawrence, absolutely. Lawrence,
South Carolina. Hey, Robert.
Yes, my comment is about misinformation on marijuana and such.
Yeah.
In the 1950s, the SLED agents presented my high school with a film called Reefer Madness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And when they concluded the film, they got up and gave us a lecture and said two fellows locked themselves in a tool shed and smoked a marijuana cigarette and blacked out. And when one came to, he had found that he had killed his friend with an axe.
Yeah.
No.
It's a rite of passage for everybody to get high and watch Reefer Madness.
Well, I've never smoked a marijuana cigarette, but I don't think it causes you to kill your friends.
No, it doesn't.
No. Let me tell you, it doesn't, Robert. Okay? I haven't killed any of my friends. I never killed any of my friends when I was high that I can remember.
I killed a few brain cells, but that's about it.
Well, I thought y'all would appreciate that.
I appreciate that. I love it.
Oh, that story, imagine. You know, the idea, right, that you could scare kids out of ever trying it?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. I remember when I was teaching school in San Francisco, a woman, a parent-teacher's night, right? So this woman came up to me and she said, I think my son may be smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what makes you think so? You know? And she says, well, like he locks himself in his room and the music is up real high and there's a weird smell coming from his room. And I said, lady, your son's smoking pot. Like, hello.
Yeah. You could have covered for me. There's always incense.
You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out.
Back to Colorado, Aurora, Colorado. It's Jody. Hello, Jody. Good morning.
Hi. The question is really still a very good one. We started talking about it. I was negotiating teacher contracts when marijuana legalization, the medical marijuana first started.
Oh yeah.
And the best comparison is you can't show up to work drunk. If they do a blood test and you got alcohol or you know. But then we started saying, all right, so what does it look like? Somebody shows up with a prescription drug in their system, but is that there's still a whole lot of questions that we haven't answered, and we've been waiting really for the first big legal case to happen over what are we going to do, because
let me ask you this, Jody, are employers in Colorado still testing for marijuana drug use and for job applicants?
Yeah, but you do as far as I know, yes, they are, and they test for any kind of substance, like alcohol or marijuana or any quote-unquote controlled substance. So,
and would marijuana cause you, that they would reject you if you had marijuana in your system when it's a legal drug now in Colorado?
Well,
we don't know yet, I guess.
We don't completely know. We haven't had a test case yet that I know of, and but it's something that we started, in our negotiations. We were kind of like, what are we going to do? And the best thing that we could come up with was to compare it to somebody showing up, on a painkiller or alcohol. Is it something that, was recommended they not show up for work anyway?
Right.
Using that drug. So that's the easiest comparison. I mean, it's easy to kind of joke around about it, but that's where the seriousness of it is.
Well, it is serious. And also, by the way, with the alcohol, of course, it goes without saying. I mean, the influence on driving. I mean, you don't want somebody driving while they're drunk, and you don't want somebody driving while they're high either. And again, when Alan St. Pierre was in, he said they're modifying or codifying the laws in Colorado to reflect that. I mean, it may be legal, but that doesn't mean you can smoke it in a restaurant or in a bar. It doesn't mean you can drive while high on marijuana either. So, but Washington D.C. May be not just the political capital, but the pot capital of the nation. At least the people of Washington D.C. are ready for that. When we come back, what's happening in West Virginia with a chemical spill? Reporter for the West Virginia Daily Mail, Andrea Lannom, joins us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. Not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need
This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, in Charleston, West Virginia, it seems the water is now safe to drink. Do people believe it? 12 minutes before the top of the hour on a Thursday morning, January 16, the Bill Press Show coming to you live all across this great land of ours, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and on our video stream, TawkrTV. Andrea Lannom is a legal reporter for the West Virginia Daily News, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hi, Andrea. Nice to talk to you.
Hi, nice to talk to you, too.
So what is the situation now? Do we have an all-clear sign out in Charleston?
Not yet. It does look like they have cleared most of the areas, which is really good news to a lot of people, because I know I'm ready to get back to normal.
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, you could just not use the water for any purpose whatsoever, correct? Okay.
Yeah, the only thing they had cleared was that you could flush the toilets with it, but other than that, you can't do anything with it.
What do people?
I've actually been commuting an hour outside of Charleston.
Wow. You mean to get water?
Yeah.
To live somewhere else? Yeah, we got to say, what did people do? Just water for washing, for drinking, for washing their babies or whatever.
Well, there's been a lot of people who are getting bottled water. I'm sure you've heard of all the people coming in and helping us out with that. And other people like myself have traveled outside of the affected counties and just got water wherever they could, in hotel rooms or with family.
And there's a lot of stories about the fact that there were warnings. This must be your beat as a legal reporter for the West Virginia Daily Mail. There had been warnings about this plant before the spill, correct?
That's what I'm getting from some of the lawsuits. Some of these people are saying that they've had problems with this licorice smell in the area before. And I've heard, I was trying to think, I think one of the plaintiffs said they had smelled it since 2008.
Whoa, right. And no action was taken? Is this plant, this plant was still operating, correct?
I believe so.
And this was a storage tank or something where this chemical had been contained?
Yes, and one of my coworkers had written something too, saying that Freedom had set aside, I think, $1 million in order to repair it, but I guess they didn't get a chance to do it in time.
Oh, I see. They had the money to repair it, but they didn't get around to doing it, huh? Yeah. You say lawsuits. Are these lawsuits being filed against, is it against, who's responsible here? Ultimately, the chemical company, I guess, but the city, the state, or all of the above?
I think that's what a lot of lawyers are trying to figure out right now. Most of the lawsuits that I have seen have just added Freedom Industries and West Virginia American Water Company. But there have been others who have been added. I think the most recent one, which one of our West Virginia delegates had joined, let's see here, they had Eastman Chemical, which is the chemicals manufacturer, on the list.
Right. Is that the name of the company? I didn't realize. Freedom Industries?
Yes.
That's ironic, isn't it? Yeah. And so this spill occurred in, just to get it straight, in the river, upstream, in the river from which water is taken for the drinking supply for Charleston. Is that correct?
That's how I understand it. They said that the chemical leaked into the Elk River and it had made its way into the West Virginia American Water Company's treatment plant, and then then the rest is history. It made its way into areas in 9 counties.
9 counties? You know, so don't you think the water agency, right, might have noticed there might be a problem with the water before they started feeding it out to families in that area? I mean, isn't that their job?
Well, and that's what a lot of people are taking issue with in some of these lawsuits, too. They're kind of faulting the water company, saying that you should have known this was going to happen, and that's what they're asserting. Yeah, either known it seems to me, either known it was going to happen or prevent it from happening by, again, as they bring the water in and they treat the water and they send it out to the community, you'd think at that point there'd be some quality control, no? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal reporter, but I could see some real case for a very pretty strong lawsuit in this after this spill. Yeah, but my recent count, there's been 24 lawsuits and 1 current federal suit against it. 24
lawsuits and 1 federal suit. Okay.
Well, there's been hundreds of people calling.
I'll bet, yeah. Andrea, that's going to keep you busy for a couple of years, probably.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, thanks for getting up early for us this morning. Thanks for good reporting out there, Andrea Lannom, for the West Virginia Daily Mail. It's dailymail.com. I can't imagine. I mean, every once in a while, they shut the water down because they're doing some repairs on the street or something. They tell you ahead of time, water's going to be off tomorrow for like an hour. We all deal with that, put some water aside, and then, but just be told, no water for no purpose, can't even brush your teeth for like a week? What do you do?
It's awful.
Wow.
That's awful.
All right. We'll be right back here on the Full Court Press.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, the TPP is getting a lot of attention, this new trade deal. Environmentalists, a lot of labor unions upset about it. We'll find out what it's all about in the next hour here of the Bill Press Show. Meanwhile, Peter?
Remarkably, there were rumors floating around that California Governor Jerry Brown was going to run for president again for a fourth time. They were already building storylines of Brown versus Hillary Clinton.
I know. I had already packed my bags.
Right?
I was ready to go out on for the volunteer yet again for
not so fast. Not so fast. Yesterday, he was asked about it point blank, and he told reporters, quote, "No, that's not in the cards, unfortunately."
Oh, is that, yeah.
Make sure he added that unfortunately there at the end. But yeah, he made it clear he's not running for president.
He ran for president in 1976. He ran for president in 1980, and he ran for president again in 1992.
Nailed it.
Yep.
Nailed it.
So having run 3 times, I think he's done. But I'll tell you one thing. If he were younger, he would run. He would be the Democratic nominee, he would win, and he would make a great president of the United States.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
What do you say, everybody? Great to see you this morning. What do you know? It's Thursday, January 16. This is the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio right here on Capitol Hill, with lots to talk about this morning here on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, TawkrTV. Free Speech TV, of course, on your satellite, on DirecTV or the Dish Network. And TawkrTV, it's youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Here are just some of the stories we're going to be following this morning. The Senate Intelligence Committee out with a report very critical of the State Department for the Benghazi attack, saying that attack on September 11, 2012, could have been prevented by better security at our consulate in Benghazi. And Marco Rubio has already demanded that Hillary Clinton be dragged back in front of Congress to testify. The presidential campaign of 2016 is already underway by a 2-to-1 margin. The residents of Washington, D.C. Support the legalization of marijuana, so the nation's capital could soon become the pot capital of the country as well. Congress, believe it or not, packing their bags and getting ready to head out of town again today. They are going to celebrate next week not just Martin Luther King's birthday, but the Martin Luther King whole birthday week. They're going to take off. And First Lady Michelle Obama, back from Hawaii, of course, she is getting ready for a big celebration tomorrow night at the White House for her 50th birthday. She is 50 and fabulous. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
President Obama gearing up for his big speech tomorrow on NSA. Will he grant Edward Snowden amnesty? No, he's not going to do that. Hey, good morning, everybody. Won't go that far. Great to see you this morning. It is Thursday, January 16. And we're coming to you live from our nation's capital. That happens to be Washington, D.C. And we're right down the street from the United States Capitol building here on Capitol Hill. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station. Nice to see all of you watching on Free Speech TV. And we welcome those on our video stream again. 12 different countries yesterday tuning in on the video stream. God knows where you are on the planet, but wherever you happen to be on the planet on video stream, TawkrTV, welcome.
Shout out to Becky, Stan.
Right. So we should say hola, bonjour. We have to start, greeting people and all the. Find out what countries and then find out the languages
I like
here.
it.
Let's get up to speed.
I'm with it.
All right. We got the team here this morning. Peter Ogburn, of course, already heard from. Lisa Murphy there.
Good morning.
On board this morning. If you call, you are lucky to talk to Alicia Cruz, who's there by the phones. And if you can see us, if you're watching, not listening,
by the way,
thank Cyprian Bolding.
Scandal, by the way,
no.
because Cyprian tweeted out a picture of his dinner last night, and he had pizza with a knife and a fork.
Oh, no.
So he's got a picture up of the pizza he had with the knife and the fork.
He's gone to the dark side.
Yeah. You converted another one, Bill. You and that communist mayor of New York City.
That's the way we communists eat our pizza.
Right.
Yeah, right, exactly. And to help us through the news of the moment this morning, we welcome Julian Hattem from The Hill, reporter for The Hill newspaper. Julian, nice to see you this morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Bill.
Thanks for coming in. Get a little closer to that microphone so we can hear you. And I always mention I write a column for The Hill every Tuesday, so I have a certain bias for that publication. But it is a great newspaper, thehill.com. If you watched the Golden Globes, you might have been as surprised as I was to see. There were two things going on at the Golden Globes. People were drunk, and they were smoking electronic cigarettes, a lot of them. I've never seen that before at a public event, right? But because usually if you're not allowed to smoke a cigarette, that's a good question. If you're not allowed to smoke a cigarette in a restaurant, can you smoke an electronic cigarette?
Yes.
An e-cigarette.
I think it's changing, yeah. I think it's a state-by-state thing, but I think more and more states are starting to say, yeah, for the most part you can.
Yeah. It's such a surreal thing to be walking like in a store and you'll just see somebody puffing on a cigarette. What the hell's going on? And then you walk by and you realize it's one of those e-cigarettes.
All right.
It's so futuristic looking there, too. They're very
little blue light
sci-fi.
at the end.
Yeah, exactly. No, there was a light at the end, right? All right, now, so then I see this woman, particularly one woman they kept showing who was smoking, and she would take a puff and then exhale. I mean, and it was puff. What is, that's not...
Water vapor. That's water vapor.
Is that all it is?
That's what it is.
Where's the water come from? In that pipe, obviously, or the cigarette. I mean, what's the water?
Witchcraft.
What's
Magic.
the water?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
But what's the water supply? You know what I mean?
It's something in that little pen or the e-cig.
But it must run out.
Well, yeah, I mean they're refillable. I mean you don't. They're like these e-cigarettes, right? They're kind of like pipes almost. I mean I've never used one, but my understanding is, you get one and then you have it for a while and you can fill it up.
It comes with little cartridges, I believe, that kind of have a little kind of fluid, I think, in them that you replace.
Okay.
Not totally sure, but that's my understanding.
Well, they might have been able to do it in L.A. at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. But don't try that in Chicago. Not after yesterday, Mayor Rahm Emanuel saying we're cracking down on e-cigarettes in public places. As you can still smoke them in your own home or your own car, I guess. But Rahm says, Other than that,
what we did here was not only to protect our kids, but also make sure that adults that want to choose this product have the chance to do it, but not in a way that informs or creates normalizes a behavior that gets you addicted in the first place.
And that was some of the criticism of the Golden Globes, I think. The kids watching might think, oh, this is cool, right? And then they start on e-cigarettes, and then they go to real cigarettes.
Real cigarettes, and then, next thing you're smoking crack,
That's the way it is. Gateway.
And then you can be mayor of Toronto.
E-cigarettes, gateway drug. All right. 11 minutes after the hour now. Congressman Mark Pocan from Madison, Wisconsin, coming up in the next hour in studio with us. Also, Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota. And we'll start off this hour with Julian talking about what we might expect from President Obama in his big speech on the NSA tomorrow. But first...
This is
the big headlines of the day.
You just mentioned the Golden Globes. It's a big it's a big day for movies today. The Oscar nominations are going to be coming out here in about an hour and a half-ish. We're going to have those as they come in, so stay tuned. However, yesterday, the Razzie nominations were announced. The worst movies of 2013 were announced. Here are the contenders for Worst Picture: After Earth, the Will Smith movie; Grown Ups 2, The Lone Ranger, A Medea Christmas, and Movie 43, all up for Worst Picture. Leading the race with more nominations than anybody is the movie Grown Ups 2, which is the Adam Sandler. It's like a rehash of an already terrible movie. So, keep an eye out for the Razzie.
I'm pleased to say I didn't see any one of those movies.
You know what? I didn't see any of these.
They were not on my list. It's not that I missed them. I just, no.
Yeah, I didn't see any of those. How about those Zards, the Wizards of Washington, D.C.? Not a very good basketball team taking on the Miami Heat last night. They were up by as much as 34 points in the second quarter.
Why are you surprised? I mean, President Obama just welcomed them as the world's champions at the White House.
The Heat. He welcomed the Heat, and then the Wizards.
Thought it was the Wizards that he welcomed. No,
it was the touch of the curse.
If President Obama gets a chance to welcome the Wizards as world champs, hell may freeze over. But they actually looked legit last night. They looked very, very good. They beat the Heat. They crushed the Heat, 114-97.
I know. It was so funny, though, that the Heat goes from being celebrated at the White House to being humiliated just down the street.
Yeah, decimated just a mile or two away.
Crushed. Yeah. He gave him the kiss of death. And Bill, did you know The Simpsons have been on the air for 24 seasons, which is still remarkable when you think about it. 24 seasons. Whoa. The Simpsons have been on the air. But one thing that people constantly complain about is that you can't access their streaming content, like the old Simpsons episodes. You can't get them. You have to go buy the DVD. Well, that is about to change. FX, which is a company that is sort of a subsidiary of Fox, has just launched their app FX Now, and you'll be able to watch all 530 episodes of The Simpsons if you're streaming it on that new app.
Wow.
I think that's why Congress is...
I got a woohoo from Cyprian over there.
I think that's why Congress is taking the week off next week.
That's right. To binge on The Simpsons.
Yeah. Could be. A lot of people will be.
I love binge watching. I don't know if I could binge watch 24 seasons. Give it a shot.
Here we go. 14 minutes now after the hour. So, Julian, President Obama, there's been a lot of talk about this. We had Edward Snowden, then since then we've had a court case, maybe two rulings, I guess, two different judges. We've had a presidential panel, the report to the president. He's had meeting after meeting after meeting. What can we expect tomorrow? He's giving a speech tomorrow at the Justice Department.
Yeah, that's right. So this has all really been building up to this big speech at the Justice Department where the president's going to lay out essentially what he wants to do to reform the NSA, some of these other controversial surveillance efforts. And, it's not entirely clear what he's going to say, of course, but probably a large portion of it is going to tackle some of these most controversial efforts, what's called the metadata surveillance effort. This is when the government kind of tracks not what you're saying on the phone, but who you're calling, how often you're calling them, things like that. And it looks like he's going to kick a lot of it to Congress. For the most part, there's been a lot of complaints from either side about what he's going to say. And so it seems like he's really going to take the pass and kind of say this is, with that program in particular, he's going to say this is probably a thing for Congress to decide, and this is things you guys should take a look at for the time being.
His panel, with 5 intelligence experts, including Richard Clarke, who was former national security, not the director, but he was national security,
including Mike Morrell, who's also the former
Mike Morrell,
the CIA.
Right. Richard Clarke there under President Bush, and before him, I think it was there under President Clinton too, toward the end. But at any rate, so a prestigious panel. I mean, they recommended.
No question.
All right. The telephone companies have all this data anyhow. So leave all that data with the telephone companies, and if NSA has reason to suspect someone to be somehow involved with terrorism. Then they go to court. They get a search warrant, just like a cop would have to have. Police would have to have one to search your house, and then they get that information from NSA. I mean, that was probably their number one recommendation. Leave the data with the phone companies until the NSA has reasonable suspicion to access that data. Is the president going to accept that one?
Probably not on its face, not necessarily.
That's one of the ones he's going to kick to Congress.
It seems like it, yeah. And there's been a lot of pushback from that. A lot of privacy, civil liberties advocates have said, we don't want the government being able to go to the phone companies do that. That doesn't really change the situation for us. They said, and phone companies have also said, we don't want to keep that. We don't want to be seen as an arm of government. That's a liability for us. It's very expensive to maintain all these records. And so there's been really pushback on both sides for that one. And so the president doesn't really necessarily... He doesn't want to seem like he wants to keep the program, although he's obviously said, the administration has said that this program has supported preventing specific terror attacks. There's obviously some debate about that. But so it seems, according to reports, what I've been hearing is that he's really been waffling on this issue, and that eventually he's going to say, probably tomorrow, that this is an issue for Congress to decide. In the meantime, we'll keep it with the NSA, but Congress should take a look and see what you guys want to do with it.
Which to me means he's really caving in, wimping out, and missing a huge opportunity. Next to The Hill, The New Yorker is maybe my favorite publication, and The New Yorker, Ryan Lizza, great reporter, maybe a month ago now, wrote a powerful piece about this whole NSA story.
Yeah.
And it showed that he showed that the two leaders in Congress, the two loudest critics in Congress of the NSA, just a few years ago, were Ron Wyden from Oregon and Barack Obama from Illinois. And the New York Times gets to that today on their front page story. Obama's path from critic to overseer of spying. So he's gone from being one of the chief critics of the NSA to now a guy who, if what you and I think is going to happen tomorrow is right, and it's been leaked, is afraid to take on the NSA. What happened?
I mean, there's been a lot of criticism about that. There's been a lot of pushback that, this was a guy who we thought was going to, but I mean, this is also extends for more than just this issue, but, we thought he was going to be a lot more kind of progressive on this. We thought he was going to break these things down. He was one of the biggest critics of the NSA and also these things called national security letters, which compel information. And then it hasn't really happened. Obviously, these were, for the most part, Bush administration programs, but he's kept them going for the most part. He hasn't clamped them down, and he hasn't necessarily increased transparency in the way that some people have hoped that he would, and in the way that necessarily he pledged he would during the campaign in the early days of the administration.
Is it just the fact that being president, he knows more about what we're getting out of this intelligence? Or, I mean, the New York Times yesterday said that he was afraid, he wanted to avoid a backlash from the intelligence agencies. Well, who's in charge? It's a question I asked yesterday. I mean, how powerful are these intelligence agencies?
Well, I mean, of course, it's all classified. We can't really tell how powerful they are, how big they are. But for the most part, it seems like they're pretty powerful. They have a lot of sway. And there's also some concerns I've heard that the president, especially in light of this new book from former Defense Secretary Gates, is not necessarily seen as always on the military side. He might have some pushback there. And so I think there's some pressures on him to not seem like he's necessarily giving a bad hand to the intelligence agencies, that he wants to make sure that he's got their back. And so it's unclear exactly why this shift has happened, why he's become supportive of these programs that he used to be so critical of. But for one way or the other, this is kind of the way it's turned out.
There's no doubt. There's been a big change here. And I find it troubling, and a lot of other people too. And then he cannot... You can't talk about this program without talking about the man without whom we would not know what was going on at the NSA, and that is Edward Snowden. How will he figure in the president's remarks? Julian Hattem's here with us from The Hill. Big question for all of us civil liberty advocates out there. Let's talk about it at 866-55-PRESS. Take a quick break and be right back.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go now, 26 minutes after the hour from the Hill. Julian Hattem here in studio with us, talking NSA. We're going to take a look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the new trade deal that President Obama is trying to push through Congress, coming up in the next half hour. So, Julian, what happens with Edward Snowden? You know, again, in the New Yorker, this week's New Yorker, there's an article about this big story recently about FBI files, where people broke into the FBI, they got these files, and because of that, there was we found out what J. Edgar Hoover was up to.
The COINTELPRO stuff, yeah. Exactly.
And there were some real reforms of the FBI that came out of that. And the author makes the point that sometimes, yes, Edward Snowden broke the law, but sometimes it's important that somebody break the law in order to make us aware of an even bigger violation of the law that's going on by a government agency.
That's certainly criticism. That's certainly what a lot of supporters of Snowden have been saying. As for Snowden himself, it's kind of unclear what's going to happen to him. Daniel Ellsberg, the leader of the Pentagon Files, recently came out in strong support, said this is a guy that we want to support when I bring him on. But judging from my reporting, some of my colleagues, one of the administration's big goals of the speech tomorrow is to unveil a series of reforms that will prevent future Edward Snowdens. There's going to be a bunch of new measures that will institute new background checks, expanded background check stuff for all these security agency workers and contractors that theoretically will prevent the kind of leaks that Snowden happened again. And they say, this is, of course, there's leakers for the press, but also to prevent, foreign agencies, foreign spy agencies from stealing information.
But, there are two sides of that. I know we're out of time, but to prevent leaks from this from happening again, or prevent us from knowing what our government is up to, especially when they're doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. So, how does it play? Free Edward Snowden. That's my... Hey, Julian, great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free tips to help you save, go to feedthepig.com. All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. It's the Bill Press Show. Good to see you today. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us as always. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital today and brought to you by the National Education Association, the good men and women of the NEA. We salute our teachers all across the country and thank them for their support. Doing a great job under President Dennis Van Rokel, and you can find out more about their good work at their website, NEA.org. For labor unions, for environmentalists, for those who are maybe a little nervous about trade deals, given the history of some of the trade deals that the United States has reached lately, starting with NAFTA. A lot of concern about the new one being considered the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP. Celeste Drake is head of trade and globalization policy for the AFL-CIO, and she's kind enough to join us in studio this morning. Celeste, nice to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah. So what is the take on, where is the TPP, first of all, just in the process, and then we'll talk about what's good or bad about it.
It's almost finished.
Meaning almost passed?
Well, no, not almost finished being negotiated.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. The administration originally announced it wanted to complete it by the end of 2012, didn't, then by the end of 2013, and didn't, and now we're hearing, you know, it's final wrap-up meetings at the ministerial level. And, you know, what's really sad about it is that this has been in negotiations for 4 years or so, and most Americans still don't know what it is or how it's going to affect them.
No, I know. That's why you're here. We're going to fix that right now. And it's being negotiated between the United States and how many other countries?
11 other countries. They're all Pacific Rim nations, so it's the NAFTA countries, Canada and Mexico. It's Peru, Chile, New Zealand, Australia, Brunei, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Japan, and Singapore.
Good for you.
That's impressive, actually. I'm just kind of in awe that you just rattled that off so easily. Nice job.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, what's also impressive is I know where every one of them is.
And some of them are probably watching the show right now.
Yeah, they probably are. Exactly. With all their video streams. So, and you know, we all know this. I think the president is right to emphasize that we're not just a Eurocentric nation. You know, we got the Pacific Coast, Atlantic Coast, and the Pacific Coast, and it is important to have good trade relationships with our Pacific partners. Right? We are a Pacific.
Absolutely.
We are a Pacific power.
We are indeed.
So we kind of want that, but we want it to be fair for American workers, right, and American consumers.
Exactly.
That's where the concerns come forth.
That's exactly where the concerns are. The TPP countries already account for about 40% of world trade, and the U.S. is heavily involved in that. So it's not like we don't already have trading relationships with these countries. In fact, we already have FTAs with Chile, Australia, Singapore.
Free trade agreements.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah.
Canada, Mexico. So this is sort of doubling down a bit on countries that we already trade heavily with and really only bringing in a few new countries. One of the key new countries is Japan, with which we have a $76 billion trade deficit.
Oh.
And based on what's happened, for instance, with NAFTA.
We also have a big trade deficit with China, don't we?
Huge trade deficit with China. Our trade deficit with the world is about $540 billion, and China accounts for roughly half of it. So, and that is how the TPP is being posed, is that somehow by concluding this agreement, it will improve our trade deficit with China, and it will sort of set the U.S. terms of trade for the Pacific instead of allowing China to set those terms. And while that's a great talking point, China is a key trading partner for all of these countries as well, and it's unlikely that China is going to allow the U.S. to set the terms for its trade. It's already got a rival trade agreement called the RCEP going on where it's trying to set its own rules.
Oh, really? So they're trying to do their own deal at the same time they're part of this deal.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, one of the reasons I was so interested in talking to you this morning and finding out more about this TPP is I got an email from a friend of mine by the name of Mike Lux, who worked in the Clinton White House. And he said at the time there were concerns raised. So he was there when they negotiated NAFTA. Okay. And at the time, there were a lot of concerns raised about what might happen with NAFTA. And he said every one of the, and of course the president went ahead and signed it at the time. But he said every one of those concerns has proven to be true, but worse than they even thought.
Absolutely.
In terms of the impact of NAFTA in jobs lost and safety conditions and prices and all that kind of stuff, right? And wages, everything bad. Everything people said was would be bad about it. Yes, worse than you thought.
Absolutely.
So what do we learn from NAFTA that we should apply here to TPP?
Well, apparently what we're learning is let's double down on bad policies and hope they have a different outcome. And what the AFL-CIO has been arguing on behalf of all of America's workers is that these policies don't work. They've been proven not to work. And what we need is trade based on a different model. It's not about closing off America's borders or eliminating imports or, failing to grow our exports, but it's about having the rules be set in a way that increases prosperity amongst all the trading partners, increases wages, creates good family wage jobs, that protects the environment, that allows countries the space to regulate as they need to develop, which is especially important for the developing economies in this agreement, like Peru, like Vietnam, like Malaysia. And our rules just don't allow that. I mean, what we've seen is sort of an anti-development in NAFTA. It was supposed to solve all of our immigration problems, if you remember. Right. It was going to make everything fantastic in Mexico and nobody would want to leave. But what happened was one of the many things that happened was that subsidized U.S. agricultural exports just drove small and peasant farmers off the land. And what we've seen is 2.3 million of the undocumented immigration since NAFTA was really a result of folks being pushed off the land due to trade. That's a really negative impact. And that's the kind of thing we should not be trying to replicate, but instead be trying to solve.
What does this do about American jobs if we have this trade deal? Does it mean we're buying more goods from overseas, therefore more Americans are losing their jobs?
Probably. There will be some job gains in some job sectors if there's increases in exports, either in goods or services. And part of the problem with the TPP is that it's secret, and so we don't really have the numbers to do a projection or analysis about which states are going to win or lose or which industries are going to win or lose. But what we've seen from all of our other trade agreements is that producers tend to close down factories here, move the factories to countries where it's not just about low wages, but it's also about low labor rights so that workers don't organize and collectively bargain for better, about low environmental enforcement, about having the right to something they called investor-state dispute settlement, which really gives foreign corporations huge leverage when a government is trying to introduce a new labor law or environmental law.
Now, the two areas that I know people always that I talk to raise concerns about are workers' rights and environmental protection.
Absolutely.
What kind of, to the extent, again, it's not so transparent, but the extent we know anything about what they're talking about, what kind of protections are in here for workers in terms of their right to organize or safety and retirement and health benefits?
What we expect to be in the agreement is something very similar to what was in the recent Peru, Colombia, Korea, Panama agreements for workers' rights, which is certainly a step above where we were with NAFTA, where the level was abysmal. And so if that's a good thing, but it's really sort of a bare minimum. That was accomplished in 2007 under President Bush. And if a Democratic president, who's trying to solve inequality and, raise standards of living for workers can't do better than President Bush, that's really disappointing. And the other thing that we found is that the labor protections, they're really just a tool to kind of highlight and give moral suasion to get countries to improve, but they don't really fix bad labor standards overnight. So if on the one hand you're doing some small but good things for labor rights, but you're killing jobs through all the other provisions in the agreement and by increasing corporate power, it's not very effective.
What you just said, I find it so stunning. I mean, certainly one would expect President Obama to demand more in terms of workers' rights in any trade deal than George W. Bush did. You would expect that, right?
And I think
it's not the case.
Well, they have said they would use May 2007 as a base and try to get more. Part of the problem is that with 12 nations,
that's not taking the lead for more, as far as I'm concerned. But
well, certainly the other 11 nations, other than Peru, none of them have standards as high as the May 2007, and the U.S. has been facing a lot of pushback. But even on some of the proposals that we handed over and said, this is really sort of what maybe a gold standard labor chapter would look like, I don't think any of the countries wanted to hear those. But, it's an uphill fight.
But let me ask you, take a quick break here, but I have to ask this question before we do. In these negotiations, is the AFL-CIO at the table?
We're not.
Is any labor union at the table? Is anybody representing labor unions or working families?
Not at all. Not at the table. We get access to have individual meetings with negotiators, and the USTR has been generous with its time. But in terms of really being at the table and having a voice,
and being able to express the policies and make your suggestions that would have to be in that. So right away, the chances of getting anything done are diminished by your voice not being there, seems to me. The other area, the environmental protections, one organization has already called them toothless. We'll find out more about them with Celeste Drake here from the AFL-CIO, Trade and Globalization Policy. A lot of you have called and said, we're not talking about TPP. Well, here we are talking about it, so tell us what you think about it. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it. 12 minutes before the top of the hour, two outstanding members of Congress, Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin and Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota, here with us in the next hour of The Bill Press Show. Right now we're talking the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership proposed, with Celeste Drake from the AFL-CIO. Celeste, before we go to our calls, like a lot of people want to talk about this, yesterday, WikiLeaks got a copy of and leaked a copy of the proposed environmental chapter of this agreement. They called it, they say there's no enforcement provision, and they called it a toothless public relations exercise. Is that your read as well?
It's about right. It's very disappointing. It's definitely a step back from what was accomplished in 2007 under the Bush administration.
Well, yeah. I mean, going backwards.
Backwards.
Not even as good as Bush did in 2007. Oy vey. Clark is calling from Rochester, New York. Hello, Clark.
Good morning, Bill.
Yes, what's up?
There's no way the U.S. can ever negotiate any kind of free trade deal because our standard of living is too high. The companies are becoming distributors rather than manufacturers. And they have their products made overseas for cheap. And the disposal of toxic and hazardous waste is regulated here. You can't just go dump it out your back door.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cost. That's expensive. And then we have disability payments for disabled people. They don't have that in the other countries we're negotiating with. I don't live in a mud hut and heat with wood. So I can't work that cheap.
All right. Hey, got your point here, Clark. What about that, Celeste? Are we in a position where maybe we're just it's not a level playing field, which works to our disadvantage?
It's definitely not a level playing field, but there are things that can be done through trade agreements to try and level the playing field. And I think it's one thing that the European Union, for all the hits it's taking these days, really tried to do when it consolidated its economic integration, is make sure that the countries that were less developed in Europe were able to rise and get closer to the standards of the richer countries in Europe. And that's one of the things that our free trade agreements haven't been able to do very well. So as Clark says, we can't do free trade agreements. we could do fair trade agreements, but they would have to look really like it would have to be a revolution in policy to really make it work.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the EU because that's a case where, at least from my distant perspective, a rising tide has kind of lifted all boats, right? I mean, all countries are sort of on a level playing field there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean not
there
exactly,
are some differences, but
certainly it was created around the same time as NAFTA, and if you look at what NAFTA was supposed to do for Mexico and didn't do, the EU certainly had much more success.
For Europe, indeed. Out to the west coast of Rancho Mirage, California, not far from where you grew up. Hello, Bob. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm beyond disappointed that Clinton and Obama act like Republican golfer presidents. I mean, maybe they should just quit the Democratic Party and just join the first tee with Herbert Walker and just play golf all day long. This thing is horrendous, and I'm thinking, boy, I wish we had a student farmer labor party in this country.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, right. Well, certainly. No, I hear you, Bob. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, in terms of a strong, powerful voice for working families, for organized labor.
It hasn't been.
Democratic Party is better than the Republican Party, but it's
absolutely.
But it's not always there.
Not always there, and particularly in the field that I work in, which is trade. There seems to be this sort of bipartisan Washington elite consensus against the principles of fair trade that creates shared prosperity, and really kind of abdicating what should be our national trade goals to the corporations. And in fact, the corporations don't represent the national interest. They play this game of global arbitrage where they pit workers against each other. And to take back that influence where more folks really represent working people, we've got to build our labor movement and see the shared interests that workers have across borders and not get ourselves into this game where it's sort of U.S. workers versus Vietnamese workers, because nobody wins that battle, just the corporations.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're on the case here, Celeste. Where can people find out more about TPP and what's going on?
People can find out more about it at the AFL-CIO's website. It's aflcio.org. And then if you go to Issues and Trade, you can read all about the TPP. We're putting up a new page on Fast Track. They can read about the proposed agreement with Europe, all kinds of interesting things.
All right, aflcio.org. It is an excellent website, by the way. I use it a lot. It's really good. No, chock full of information and very easy to navigate, too. So,
great.
Unlike healthcare.gov. Thanks so much. Good to meet you. Nice to see you. And we'll come back with Congressman Mark Pocan and Congressman Keith Ellison.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the products suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
All right, hour number 3 coming up. I know you like the first 2 hours. You're going to like hour number 3 even better. We got 2 outstanding Democratic members of Congress coming in. Mark Pocan, new congressman from Madison, Wisconsin, great progressive out there in front on a lot of important issues. And then Congressman Keith Ellison from Minneapolis, St. Paul, of course. He is here. He's got a new book out called My Country, 'Tis of Thee. Go to TawkrTV, youtube.com, TawkrTV for hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, on a Thursday morning, January 16. In the next hour, again, 2 outstanding Democratic members of Congress, Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin and Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota, neither one of whom are retiring. Good. Damn tired of hearing about all these members of Congress retiring.
Seriously.
Good friends of ours. No, they'll be here in studio with us in the next half hour. And the president, fairly light schedule today in terms of public events. He gets a daily briefing at 10:20 this morning, and then he and the First Lady deliver remarks at 11:20 in the South Court Auditorium about expanding college opportunity. The briefing with Press Secretary our briefing with Press Secretary Jay Carney is scheduled for noon today, right after the President and the First Lady complete their program over at the South Court Auditorium. Hour number 3 coming up here with the Bill Press Show this Thursday morning. Good to have you with us, and don't go away.
This is the Bill Press Show. broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
63% of residents of Washington, D.C. say they favor the legalization of recreational marijuana. We are about to become the pot capital of the nation. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Thursday, January 16. Great to have you with us today on the Bill Press Show for this third hour here. We're coming to you live, of course, from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, right down the street from the United States Capitol building. Booming out to you on your local progressive talk radio station and on our video stream the latest was 12 different countries around the world. Who knows where you happen to be on the planet. On your laptop, on your computer, you can watch us on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And one of our great affiliates, very proud to be the morning show on 92.1 The Mic out in Madison, Wisconsin. And Madison is proud to have Congressman Mark Pocan representing them in the United States Congress. He's in studio with us this morning. Congressman, good to see you.
Oh, great to see you, Bill.
Thank you for coming in today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On your way to work, we're right next door. It was just,
exactly.
Yeah.
Make it easy for you.
Exactly. Very convenient. Thank you.
And the team here, I think, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Alicia Cruz there is in charge of the phones. She'll take your calls, screen your calls, and get you on the air. And Cyprian Bolding, he's got the cameras working this morning. The lights are on, keeping us looking good on the video stream. I mentioned, Congressman, my favorite item of the morning. For those of you listening on the radio, I'll describe it. For those of you watching the video stream, you can see the cover of the New Yorker magazine this week has traffic snarled on the George Washington Bridge. Are all sitting there in their cars, and in front of that long line of traffic is a little boy playing with a ball. He's got short pants on and a cute little shirt. That's clearly Chris Christie holding up traffic while he's playing games. Well, they weren't playing ball, they were playing political games on the bridge. But anyhow, everybody's still having fun with Chris Christie, including David Letterman last night, who referenced the Governor Christie's State of the State address and some of the things he bragged about. Of course, it all ties together. Here's David Letterman.
Chris Christie has stopped jobs from leaving New Jersey. Of course, he closed the bridge. He said crime in New Jersey is down. Of course, he closed the bridge. They can't get in. He said he created the single biggest turnaround in the history of the state. Hey, you can't turn around. He closed the bridge.
It's just like shooting fish in a barrel, as they say. It ain't over yet for sure. And Congressman Mark Pocan is a proud member of the Progressive Caucus of the House. The co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Congressman Keith Ellison, will join us just a little bit later. And Congressman, let's find out what's going on with unemployment insurance and other good issues. But first, we'll get to that right after Peter tells us the big stories of the day.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We talked last hour about the Golden Globes and how you saw a lot of the celebrities smoking e-cigarettes in the audience. Leonardo DiCaprio was front and center smoking an e-cigarette. Well, some politicians are not okay with that. 4 Democratic senators came out yesterday. Dick Durbin, Richard Blumenthal, Sherrod Brown, and Ed Markey all came out and said that they believe that showcasing this kind of smoking can highly influence the impressionable minds of today's youth. And they think it was a bad example to set by the Golden Globes to show these pictures of stars smoking e-cigarettes.
Whoa. So Markey, Durbin, Sherrod Brown, and
Blumenthal.
4 good liberals.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa. They don't like it. Speaking of the movies at the Golden Globes, in about 30 minutes, we're going to have the Oscar nominations announced. We're going to keep an eye on those. We'll get those to you as soon as they come in. Meanwhile, the Razzies yesterday announced the worst movies of the year. Here are the ones that are vying for worst movie of the year. After Earth, Grown Ups 2, The Lone Ranger, A Medea Christmas, and Movie 43, all selected in the category of Worst Picture.
Adam Sandler makes it again.
Adam Sandler is on there as he's one of the worst actors. In fact, that's for Grown Ups 2, which leads the nominations with 8 Razzie nominations.
When have they decided?
I'm not sure, actually. They come pretty soon. I think they usually come like the day before the Oscars. So. And this sounds like a good story, but it's not exactly as nice as it sounds. The San Diego Padres are having open auditions for a PA announcer. Anybody can do it. Any fan can come and they can audition to be their PA announcer, except there's one problem. They already have a PA announcer. The guy's name is Frank Anthony. He's been doing it for 10 years, and he spoke out yesterday and said this is very hurtful and disrespectful that they're openly trying to replace him.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. He's mad. He's saying, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been loyal. I haven't done anything wrong, but the Padres say that they have sort of an opportunity to...
Could he apply for the...
I guess he could, He having to reapply
for his own job?
For his own job.
That's outside the box thinking. I like that, Bill.
Yeah, so there you go. Padres...
Just get in line.
Yeah.
11 minutes after the hour.
Resume, sir?
Yeah. First, I have to ask you, Congressman. We've been for progressive Democrats. Just has been one body blow after the other this week with the announcement by George Miller, my good buddy from California. He's not going to. He's going to step down this year, and then Jim Moran yesterday from Virginia. Said he's going to step down. Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy, we know she has some health problems, but she's leaving Congress as well. From up New York State, was it Bill Owens, right?
Yep.
I mean, what's going on with these retirements? Are they just sick and tired of not being able to get anything done, or what do you hear?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the undercurrent that we're hearing. People are just, we don't do anything in Congress. Speaker Boehner is completely held captive by the Tea Party. The Tea Party, people who don't believe in government then ran for office to run government, which is totally illogical. Run it down.
Yeah.
And, if you look at what we did last year, if the Do Nothing Congress got 350 bills done in the 1948, we got 50-some done by maybe 63, I think, at the end of the year. It's difficult, especially for members, especially for people who've been around for a long time who did things, and then to have to be in this current environment, it's very difficult.
Yeah, so they just sort of decided, why hang around, right? And why hang around and do nothing?
Yeah, and I'll tell you,
but it's going to make a difference. It leaves a hole. A guy like George Miller.
Exactly. I was just going to say, George Miller is. I think to many Democratic members, I've had people tell me he's like a member's member. He's the person we should all aspire to be. And losing him has been especially hard. I mean, I just got on the Education and Workforce Committee where we deal with labor issues in higher ed and K-12. His committee, and he's just someone that you can't replace.
Well, I've heard that from so many members, but well, hang in there, Congressman. Right?
Yep. I've been there 1 year. I haven't been kicked enough.
In terms of not getting anything done, a lot of people disappointed from the president on down that Congress left for the Christmas holiday without extending unemployment insurance benefits, which were due to expire January 1. They did expire January 1 for 1.3 million Americans. And now you're about to take off another week to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday and leaving town without extending unemployment benefits again.
Yep. And
is it ever going to happen?
Well, it has to happen. In the Senate, unfortunately, the Republicans all voted against it again this week. But in the House, we can't even get a vote out of Speaker Boehner. So, we've been trying every procedural motion. I know that Gary Peters out of Michigan has asked us to stay and not go home for a break to get this done. Alan Lowenthal, Representative Alan Lowenthal from Long Beach, California, and I have put a letter out to our colleagues asking people to bring someone who's lost their benefits to the State of the Union speech the week after we're back.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
So we're trying to really put the human face on it, because I think it's one thing to say.
You raised this on the floor. Some of you did.
Yeah,
correct?
We did for about an hour of the Progressive Caucus, our special order hour. We talked about this. It's one thing to talk about the 1.3 million people that lost benefits on December 28th, but it's also 72,000 people a week are going to continue to lose benefits. And if you think about it, from Wisconsin, that's almost like the entire Lambeau Field losing benefits every week. And I like to point out the largest two cities in Speaker Boehner's district are 60,000 and 62,000 people. That's like that entire city losing their benefits in 1 week. So while we don't act, real people are affected. And I did a press event last Monday, this past Monday, in my district with people who are who've been unemployed and are affected by this. And when you hear their stories, if they can't pay their rent, can't buy groceries, but more importantly, if they can't pay for gas to get a job, or they can't pay their phone bill to see if they got a job, then you're putting them in a cycle where they're going to be on other programs that are going to cost money, but we're not helping them to get work.
And what do you say to a Rand Paul who says, well, if you give these people money, they're less late, then they're not going to go out and look for a job because they're just going to be fat and happy with that money?
I got to believe they honestly don't believe that. I think this is just part of their rhetoric. I mean, I find it hard to believe that anyone who's gotten to the level they've gotten to at Congress is really that woefully ignorant of reality. Now, we know now this year officially over half of Congress are millionaires, and I do think that is one of the problems, is that they've maybe lost some connection to where their constituents really
real
are.
People.
Yeah, but every single district has people who've lost benefits and are affected by this, and so we're going to keep fighting in every possible way to get this done, and I hope the president makes this a really high-profile issue at the State of the Union, but we're going to try to bring people and really try to have that conversation. But also next week, while we're back in districts, we're going to keep talking about this, and I know we're going to be in my district in Rock County, a county that Paul Ryan and I happen to share. We split the county, and we're going to profile people down there who've been affected by this, because we need to get people who should know better to do the right thing.
Just to clarify, you are going to be doing that. Paul Ryan is not.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We're just trying to highlight.
In his half of the county, screw the poor, right? Your half of the county, you're going to try to help them out.
What's sad is in his half of the county, because I've lived in Wisconsin my entire life, not only has GM left and all the companies that fed into GM, so they still have a lot fewer jobs. In fact, the only pickup in jobs have been check cash businesses and places like that. But 1988, Parker Penn had 1,000 jobs. I have a union specialty printing business, so I help source American-made and union-made products. In 1988, there were 1,000 jobs in that community. When they decided in 2009 they were going to move everyone, the final plant, down to Mexico, they were down to 150 jobs. But just think about it, in just a little over 20, 25 years, that's 1,000 jobs in a community of 60,000 people completely gone, outsourced because of bad trade deals.
And a plant like that was the life of the community, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And GM and others, and people had family supporting wages. I grew up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where at the time we had American Motors Company, then it became Renault, then it became Chrysler, and now it's a empty field, or it's a development. We've lost all those jobs in that community. But those were jobs that supported my family, my neighbors' families, and the union, UAW, was a very strong union, took care and made sure that people had that good quality of life. And all that's unfortunately gone away.
Congressman Johnson is on the phone here from Madison, Wisconsin, joining us on the show this morning. Hey, Johnson, good to talk to you.
I'm calling about the cutting spending, cutting the subsidies to big farmers, limiting the subsidy to the size of, say, the poverty level for a family of four, and the single-person poverty level for corporate farms. I mean, it seems that the farm bill is up in the air, so why not generate some interest? I mean, if Speaker Boehner wants cuts in spending, this is a way to cut spending.
Congressman?
We tried to do that.
Thanks, Johnson, for the call.
Yeah, thanks, Johnson. We got within a couple votes of actually being able to do that during the debate on the bill. I agree that should still be on the table if they truly want cuts. The problem is, I think what they say they want and what they actually want often have no correlation whatsoever.
No, I mean, the president's been out there for the oil companies, remember the famous people who own their own corporate jets, for some of the agricultural subsidies. There are places, there are cuts that would actually provide new revenue and also a fairer tax system, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Chris Van Hollen, leading our budget committee for the Democrats in the House, he's put all those things out there. Let's get rid of the oil and gas subsidies. Let's get rid of the tax break for corporate jets, for companies that send jobs overseas. I would love to see a much broader conversation on these companies that hide their funds, 18,000 corporations in a 5-story building in the Cayman Islands just to avoid taxes. We should be much more aggressive in going after those people because they're tax cheats. Let's just say what they are. They're tax cheats. And we need to make sure that we're bringing in those kind of revenues, because then we would have money for the programs. If they really want to make sure that we have funding for unemployment, then those are plenty of sources we could. Although I'd like to bring up that 5 times under President Bush, we did it without any strings attached, and the unemployment rate was lower than it is now. We worked in a bipartisan way back then.
And I think it's 14 out of 19 times unemployment insurance has been raised. It was without a pay-go or without a pay-for. Congressman Chris Van Hollen was sitting right where you were just a couple of days ago, and he pointed that out. He said, first of all, the pay-for argument's phony, but if you really want to stick to it, he said, I got the ways to pay for it. They're not going to hurt anybody, right, really, except the wealthiest people and the big corporations. Here are the ways. I put out the list, right? So agree to these, getting rid of these subsidies, and you would have paid for unemployment insurance. And, of course, they won't even listen to that argument.
Absolutely.
Congressman Mark Pocan here from Wisconsin. Your call's welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Let's find out chances for the minimum wage and get the congressman's take on that TPP we were talking about in the last hour here when we come back on the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show. seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
At 25 minutes after the hour, this is the Progressive Caucus of the United States Congress here. This hour with Congressman Mark Pocan, member of the caucus here and a leader of the caucus, in the studio with us, to be soon joined by the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Keith Ellison, from Madison. So in terms of, the president talks, and as Bill de Blasio did, about income inequality. Mm-hmm. It's kind of nice to hear people talk about income inequality now, isn't it?
It's so overdue. And
hello, yeah.
Part of what we did on the floor, actually, Communication Workers of America put out some really interesting slides they gave to members of the Progressive Caucus, and we blew them up on charts and talked about them on the floor, showing where wages would be if we kept up with the productivity of workers, where the disparity is with the 354 times CEO pay versus the average worker pay, and then even the decline of unionization. You can watch it all, and then the best was looking at when we started our first free trade fast track agreement. You start to see the decline in having more exports and then having imports, and then you look at NAFTA and you look at the steep decline, and it's just some really visual ways to be able to talk about all of these things are hurting the middle class and those who aspire to be in the middle class.
Well, so that's a good segue to the TPP we talked about in the last hour, right? This is the next trade agreement that's now being negotiated, basically in secret, right? From what we learned from NAFTA, there's some concerns about TPP, correct?
This may look NAFTA look like it was kind of child's play when you get done. I mean, this has got so many potential chapters of so much that we don't know, but some information has been leaked, and some of us have looked at certain sections. But think about it. How do you bring a country like Vietnam, where the minimum wage, I think, is 28 cents an hour, where I think you're supposed to be able to get 4 days off a month? How do you bring them into labor standards that we can have fair trade? Free trade is one thing, but fair trade is more important. And if you don't have labor standards or environmental standards, if we have bad currency policy, if we wind up allowing the big banks to be able to, as we are hearing, could have some very bad provisions, we're going to lose so much autonomy, and it'll be multinational corporations will be able to sue states and countries over things like Buy America policies.
Whoa. I mean, I was just thinking, I'm afraid that you're dealing with a country with a 28 cents an hour minimum wage, that you go to the lowest common denominator.
It's just a wage erosion, and then you'll have it more and more here. And we're already at a huge disparity between the top 1% and the rest of us. This will only get worse.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming in today.
Absolutely,
Great
Bill.
to
Thank
see
you.
And say hello to all of our good friends out of Madison for us.
Absolutely. It's a great group in 92.1. We appreciate your show.
We'll be back with Congressman Keith Ellison.
Bill Press Show. Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, 33 minutes after the hour now here. Welcome back here to the Bill Press Show on a Thursday morning, January 16, coming to you live from our nation's capital. Brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work, you bet. And their website is teamster.org. Check it out. You can see all the different things that they are up to. As we have said, we are the Progressive Caucus of the United States Congress this hour with Mark Pocan here from Wisconsin, and now the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota. Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
Happy New Year, Bill. Keep pressing on. Hey, that Pocan is something, isn't he?
He is. He's good.
I love that guy. He is what we're looking for.
And the special order yesterday on the minimum wage, I mean, led by a freshman member of Congress.
Yeah, you know what? Mark is taking on the leadership mantle, and there are a lot of strong people in his class. I mean, you know, Hakeem Jeffries, Steve Horsford, Matt Cartwright, Dan Kildee. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. I don't mean to, forgive me, but the bottom line is it's a strong group, and he is strong in that group, and so we're just grateful. You know, I think that this freshman class, it used to be that, okay, you're new, sit down, shut up, sit in the corner. Now we look at the freshman class as to bring us news from the front, if you know what I mean. They have been out there talking to the voters, have a very fresh look at what the country wants.
I asked Mark about this. I want to ask you too, Congressman. It must be a blow to you to see George Miller, Jim Moran step aside. I mean,
so those are two awesome progressives, you know. But you know what the thing is that both of them have worked really hard for people and been very effective. And you know, if they feel that it's time for them to seek other opportunities, you know, I say to them, thank you for all you've done and best of luck, my brother, because you know, that's why I'm so excited about a Pocan, because, you know, George Miller has done his good part.
Pass the torch, huh?
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and George Miller will be missed. He is, he's the best. You know, what do you want from him? But you know, it's exciting to know that great leaders like George can retire in comfort knowing that we have some exciting new members.
And he can certainly be proud of his contribution.
Oh, absolutely.
As well.
Indispensable.
Now, we are glad to see you, and congratulations. Very, very exciting. A new book out, absolutely brand new this week, My Country, 'Tis of Thee, Congressman Keith Ellison. There you are.
That guy looks like me.
Man, look at that.
Yeah. This is your story. Tell us what's it all about.
It's about.
I just got it, so I haven't had a chance to crack it.
It's about our country. It's about the direction of our country. You know, it's a book about my love of this nation and my belief that we can scale higher heights than we have, and that some of the lowlights that we've seen in the past several years, you know, don't define us. And that if we get in there, we stick and we stay, and we don't divide ourselves on religion and race and stuff like that, then the future is bright for America.
So you're still optimistic?
Absolutely. You know, because I believe that people really, you know, look, the pessimists are the ones who are not realistic. If the pessimists were right, we'd still have slavery. If the pessimists were right, women wouldn't have the right to vote, and we never would have had a labor movement, and we never would have had an environmental movement. But the pessimists were wrong. And the people who were those hopeful optimists, who didn't have the facts in front of them, but who believed in a better day, who laid it on the line, like Martin Luther King, like LBJ, who, you know, with the war on poverty, you know, that was a visionary thing. Those people were right. And so that's what I'm saying in this book. In this moment, you know, you're looking at these obstructionist Republicans. They're shutting down the government. They will refuse to cooperate with us on extending unemployment benefits and a whole host of other obstructionist things. But don't be fooled by the moment, because there's going to be another moment in a moment. And we've got to be prepared for it. And that means organizing, pulling together, sharing information, being optimistic. Pessimists don't win. Optimists do.
The book is My Country, 'Tis of Thee. It's available in bookstores as of this week, and we will put up a link on our website. Of course, you can get it through any of the websites, Amazon.com and others. And it is published by Simon & Schuster. So there you go.
Yeah. It talks about my own story. Like we all have a story, right?
I was going to ask you, yeah.
We all have a story. And I think that, when you add up all these stories, that's an American story. But my little piece of that story is I was born in the city of Detroit. I was born to two Southerners. My mother grew up in Natchitoches, Louisiana. When she walked to school every day, she walked past this huge statue. And it was a black man tipping his hat. And it said, in faithful memory of the good darkies of Louisiana. And that's the indignity she had to face as a child growing up.
Whoa.
But, like I'm her son, right?
Yeah.
So she grew up seeing that, but she did not let that define who she was or what her possibilities were.
Well, we first met you when you were running for Congress, right?
Yeah.
And, it wasn't that long ago, and you took a lot of heat, right?
Took a little heat.
Right, because you
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. First Muslim elected to Congress.
That's right.
And, you could not be loyal to this country. You had to be pro Osama bin Laden.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
all that
of
stuff.
one of the craziest clips I've ever seen, where Glenn Beck asked you point blank if you were working with the terrorists.
Yeah, that's
right.
what,
that's
what he wanted to know.
So do you still get any of that stuff, or have you?
Yeah, we get it. We get it. Yes, we do. We do get it, and people who are Muslim all over this country get it. And I'm probably don't get it as much as average citizens say in the city of Dearborn.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just this week this guy. I think his name was Gemma. He's a member of the Republican National Committee who had made some horribly intolerant comments about Muslims. But you know what? And right there in Dearborn, Michigan, and the people who live there have to put up with that, just like they had to put up with Terry Jones protesting them because they were Muslim, wanting to burn Qurans and stuff like that. But, in that case, there were more people who were Christian than Muslim who showed up in Dearborn to say, this is not us. And what I'm trying to talk about in the book is, look, throughout this country's history, we've had Bull Connor, but we also had Martin Luther King, right? Throughout this country's history, we had the intolerant people who wanted to make a state religion, but we also had Thomas Jefferson, who said, no, religion will be up to the individual American person. And so that's the thing. We have every reason to believe that if we organize and stick together and don't divide ourselves, that a better moment is in our store.
All right. Now I want you to help me out here. I want you to give me some of that optimism about this Congress getting something done on. Let's start with what Mark Pocan talked about last night, and you and others on the floor, of the minimum wage.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about something that's crying for change.
Well, let me just say that people should know that America's never been richer. If you look at our per capita, that means divided by the by the number of people in America, our gross domestic product per capita never been higher. Our offshore profits of American corporations are at record levels. American corporations are making all kinds of money.
More money than they ever did.
And yet, our minimum wage, when adjusted for inflation, is lower than it was in 1950. In fact, the goods and services that American workers create, they are not sharing in the bounty of. The big corporations are sweeping the cream from the workers, and giving the workers nothing more than enough money to get back to work. And don't care about unemployment, because they know that if you tighten the labor market, reduce unemployment, that means you got workers who can demand higher pay and better working conditions, which is the last thing they want. They'd rather offshore the jobs to Vietnam, where the minimum wage is 30 cents. So what do we do? What's the reality? The cause of the raising the minimum wage is right, and it's just, it's logical. It'll help the American people, and we've got to mobilize. And so we will do two things if we mobilize. We will heighten we will let Americans know who's on their side, or we will win. So we will either win, or we will reveal how much the Republicans do not look out for the average American worker. So we can't lose, actually, unless we sit around and cry and talk about how bad it is. That's the only way we lose. But if we are willing to throw our shoulder into it, even if we don't get the increase in minimum wage we want, and we will at least reveal to people for the next round of elections who really is for them and who really is not.
And I'm sure you pointed out last night that this has always been almost a no-brainer, right? Republicans and Democrats, they just do it.
No-brainer. Republicans have raised the minimum wage. Republicans have extended unemployment benefits. This is not your father's Republican Party. This is not even the Republican Party of 5 years ago. I mean,
right.
George Bush extended unemployment and raised the minimum wage. The Republican Party, I submit, has been destroyed. The Republican Party of Eisenhower that would build roads all over this country is gone. The Republican Party that would protect poor black kids in Little Rock, Arkansas, trying to go to school, it's gone. The Republican Party of today is really an extreme libertarian group who only cares about increasing their wealth and power of the richest people. It's a plutocratic party. So the bottom line is, we need to make that point clear too. That even Bob Dole couldn't exist in this Republican Party. Ronald Reagan couldn't exist in this Republican Party.
He talks about amnesty. I mean, he's called it amnesty, and
they don't want to do nothing on immigration. They don't want to do nothing.
A ban for assault rifles. I mean,
right.
Look at what Ronald Reagan. I mean,
right. Well, they don't
conservative as he was.
So these people, if you're at all conservative, don't confuse real conservatism, which is watching the money, being careful, making sure that the government doesn't go too far.
Get too
we
big,
get that. We get that. But what we don't get is this: shutting down the government, no action on anything that is meaningful for the American people, named immigration, unemployment, raising the minimum wage, and a whole range of other things. I mean, they literally shut the government down because we were trying to extend health care to Americans who didn't have it. They shut it down for that purpose, and they have lost overwhelmingly. And one of them said to me, the shutdown is 1 million years ago. Really?
Yeah.
I remember it pretty well.
Jeez. Wow.
It's fresh in my mind.
Yeah. American people remember. They're hoping that people forget about it.
Right.
But guess what? They're not going to. Congressman Keith Ellison here with us. So much to talk about, so many questions. 866-55-PRESS. You know how to join the conversation. We invite you to do so. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Thursday morning, January 16, 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota's 5th Congressional District here in studio with us. All right.
Good to be here, man.
And we got a little breaking news here with the Academy Award nominations being announced.
Literally
Peter
just
on top of
finished announcing the Best Picture nominees. We'll go through those. Best Picture nominees, Academy Awards.
10 envelope, please.
There are 10 of them, yes. 12 Years a Slave.
Ooh.
American Hustle.
Oh, yeah.
Captain Phillips, which is kind of a
Good
surprise. Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh, boy.
Gravity. Her. Inside Llewyn Davis.
Whoa.
Nebraska. Saving Mr. Banks. And The Wolf of Wall Street.
No Philomena.
No Philomena, although there were several awards for the acting in that movie. So, yeah, that was a snub. I've not seen any other big snubs in there. It looks like they got a lot of them, but yeah.
12 Years a Slave is a powerful movie.
Oh, man, that movie's like, it's like a roller coaster, right? It's visceral. You feel it. It's palpable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, all right. There we go. We got our homework. Now to see all those movies before the nomination.
Did Scahill get some love?
Scahill, our friend Jeremy Scahill, was nominated for Best Documentary for his movie Dirty Wars. And he just tweeted, by the way, holy
expletive
bleep. And that's all he tweeted.
Yeah.
All right. Go Jeremy. Yeah, powerful book.
Go for it, man.
I usually conduct the interviews here, but Peter has a question for the congressman.
I had to ask, we have breaking news as of yesterday. So the Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings. Yeah, we got a new coach.
5-10-1 this season. Not a great season.
What happened with that? I mean,
I hate ties.
How do you even do
this?
that?
This isn't soccer. This is football.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Play it out.
They got a new coach, Mike Zimmer. Comes from the Bengals. Defensive guy. Is the defense the problem for the Vikings?
Yes. I think the defense has been the problem, but also our quarterback has been the problem. So if we do something on the quarterback side and we solidify the defensive line and of course the middle. I think we're weak at middle linebacker. Mm-hmm. And of course, we've drafted high for cornerback, and we hit one was good. Xavier Rhodes was good. Chris Cook not so much, and we just should put him on waivers and maybe get another good cornerback.
All right. You should have a good feeling about the new coach.
I don't know why they don't let me try it.
I was going to say.
I'm telling you, man, I could do that. I'm sure I could return some kicks, man.
I'm just amazed. All these guys. You're on top of it.
That's why I wanted to ask. You know what you're talking about.
All right, absolutely. I want to ask you back to the boring public policy stuff. Now, we know the numbers on the Affordable Care Act, right? Is health care... Republicans really think they're going to be able to just clean up by running against Democrats on Obamacare this year.
But they've been shockingly quiet this week.
That's true.
I think they've shifted their tactics. I mean, if you look at the fall, we're gonna kill it, we're gonna shut it down, we're gonna end it. That's it. But now they're not attacking the program. They're sort of like trying to raise questions about the existing program. They've almost conceded the program. What do I mean? So like they have some bill out there that would require that they be like weekly reporting on numbers when every other federal program is reporting monthly. So they just want to like paper them to death and bog them down and tedium. And then the other thing is sort of trying to raise questions around the security of the site. Like, although there have been no breaches, nobody's information has been lost. But they're trying to make people believe that it could be insecure. This is, just an attempt to shy people away. But the bottom line is millions of people are signing up. This is going to be a good thing. I'm high on the Affordable Care Act. I'm a single payer guy, and I was on the elevator with some Republican colleagues of mine who are I'm friendly with. And they were kind of saying, well, they didn't know I was on the elevator, that they just want to do this so that they can push in single payer. And I turned around and I said, you guys say it like it's a bad thing. We like it. So, we all had a laugh. But the point is, single payer would be cheaper, better, cover more people. But we got what we got, right? So let's make the most of it. And I want folks out there to remember, the single payer people to remember, in 1964, when we passed the Civil Rights Act, a lot of people were mad not because they were against civil rights, but because they thought it should have voting, they thought it should have fair housing. But in 1965, we did get voting, and in 1968, we got housing. So my point is, never quit.
Right.
Never quit.
And the ACA allows states to experiment with it, and Vermont is just about to do that if they haven't already done so.
I'm going to tell you something. if Vermont goes single payer, you will see businesses flock to Vermont because that will alleviate a big nugget from their bottom line and will be a real boon to business and will spark creativity, will spark entrepreneurism. Anybody who's tinkering in their garage will want to be in Vermont because they're going to be the ones who can afford to do it. Minnesota needs to do it too, and the whole country.
All right, you got it. The book is My Country, Tis of Thee. Congressman Keith Ellison, thank you so much.
Thanks,
so
Bill.
Great to see you, and I'll be back with our parting shot for today.
Absolutely.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, one of the biggest challenges that Democrats face in 2014 is winning back the House of Representatives. It's going to be even harder now with the retirements this week of, first of all, a couple of weeks ago, Carolyn McCarthy and Mike of New York and Mike McIntyre from North Carolina. But this week, Bill Owens of New York, George Miller from California, and Jim Moran of Northern Virginia. Of course, as Congressman Keith Ellison just said, we thank those men and women for their outstanding service over the years, but you can't help but wish they had just stayed around to help win back the House in 2014. Hey, folks, that's it for today here on the Bill Press Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell all your friends to join you by coming back again right here tomorrow. We'll see you then.
This is the Bill Press Show.